we go, it's plot time. Now the plot section is going to be structured a bit more carefully than my last review. I'm going to sort of break down the plot into separate facets to more accurately analyze it. I personally think that there are three main parts to any superhero movie's story: the hero's journey, the villain's plan, and how well the story is balanced with the action. So let's take them in no particular order. Now, superheroes are often defined by their villains. If there were no supervillains around to fight, then superheroes would just be running around getting back stolen purses and stopping gang wars all day. Which is definitely noble work, it's just not that interesting to watch on the big screen. So the actions of a hero are usually based around trying to stop a villain's plan from coming to fruition. In the first movie, Magneto's plan is thus: he has created a machine that will cause mutations in the normal human genetic code, basically activating the Mutant X gene. He's going to use this machine at a World Leaders Summit to mutate all the world's leaders so that the planet will be run by mutants. But the machine runs off of his magnetic powers, and the first time he used it, it almost killed him. So he's going to capture Rogue and transfer his powers to her so that he can force her to run the machine for him. Now, this is actually not too bad of a plan. It's a soft science nightmare, yes, but, you know, once you've seen the Fantastic Four, any other kind of soft science just seems like small potatoes. Like I said, the only problem I really have with this plan is that I don't feel like Magneto's arrogance about his gifts would allow him to spread his powers around to the rest of the world. But besides that, it's a pretty decent plan and is fairly well paced. In the second movie, we have two villains, Magneto and William Stryker. Stryker is our villain for most of the movie. He has kidnapped Professor Xavier and has essentially basically brainwashed him into thinking in a false reality. He plans to hook up the brainwashed Xavier to a reconstructed version of Cerebro. And he's going to trick Xavier into locating the minds of every single mutant on the planet, and then flood their minds with psychic energy, which will kill every single mutant on Earth. Pretty good. Lots of danger, the pathos of their mentor being used against them. I like it. But then, of course, there's the Magneto angle. Now, for most of the movie, he cooperates with the X-Men, and this makes a lot of sense, because he obviously doesn't want every mutant on the planet to die either. But then once they get to the compound, there's a special twist. Magneto and Mystique break off from the main group, and instead of rescuing Xavier, they simply rewire Cerebro, and then instead tell him to target all of the humans in the world and flood their minds with psychic energy, meaning that every human on the planet will be killed instead of every mutant. Now, this is exactly the kind of thing that Magneto excels at. One of the things I love about him is his ability to have a master plan, but keep it to himself until it is time to put it into motion. During the movie, you can definitely tell he's got some kind of ulterior motive, but you don't know exactly what he plans to do until he actually starts doing it. As I said earlier, this plan is simple but brilliant and makes for a very enjoyable watch. Now, believe it or not, I don't have much of a problem with a lot of the main elements in Magneto's plan from the third movie. Wanting to destroy the source of the mutant cure, creating a huge mutant uprising, condemning humanity's actions as evil, using terrorist tactics, these are all totally fine with me. However, as I mentioned before, I think his decision to use Jean was incredibly out of character for him. Magneto is obsessed with control, and he has to be because his plans are often very, very elaborate. Every single step needs to go off without a hitch if they are going to be successful. He's not stupid, he knows how dangerous and uncontrollable Jean is, but for some reason he just brings her along anyway. This mischaracterization was a big misstep for me, and it kept me from enjoying a lot of the other facets of the third movie. So, I will say that I think the second movie definitely did best in terms of the villain's plan. And now we have plot versus action. A familiar trap that I think a lot of superhero movies fall into is having too much action and not enough plot, which I think is the case with the third movie. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of the action in the third movie is really, really good, but a lot of it ends up devolving into mindless mutant fights that are just bordering on the realm of extreme! A couple of the fights do have thematic elements, like I said, the one between Pyro and Iceman, but most of it is just mindless, pointless action. Plus, the movie just doesn't balance the action very well in my mind. Toward the beginning, there are huge chunks of plot with almost no action, and towards the end, there are huge chunks of action with absolutely no plot. And you need to space these things out more evenly so that the audience has room to breathe. This is something the first and second movies do a lot better. The plot and the action are spaced out more evenly while still having good climaxes. But I do have to say that I like the second movie best, and here's why. The action involves a lot more strategic thinking. In the first movie, the team felt disorganized for almost the entire film. They really only work as a team in the very final action scene where they combine their powers to defeat Magneto. But up until then, they split up a lot. In the second movie, they only split up when necessary and function as a group. Now we have the hero's journey, and like I said, this plot is mainly about Wolverine. But going back and looking at my other footage, I think I already went into that enough. So I'm not going to rehash it. Rather, I'm going to look at the team more holistically. Now in the first movie, as I said, they don't really feel like a team yet. There's some trust issues, there's some infighting, and like I said, there's the disjointed combat. Most of their characters are established pretty well, and there's nothing essentially wrong with most of them, but some of the acting does end up feeling sort of stiff and unengaging. Because of this, I don't end up warming up to most of the characters in the first movie. They don't really feel like a team. Now in the second movie, they do a lot better in this regard. They sort of feel like a family that is finally starting to get used to having this big house that they all have to live in. Plus, of course, the kidnapping of Xavier really helps them band together in a way that they had not been able to up until that point. In the third movie, we do definitely still have some of that teamwork, unfortunately led by the incredibly boring Storm. Seriously, why do they have that character carry so much of the third movie? But it is still teamwork. But because of the introduction of so many secondary mutants, the team doesn't really feel as compact and intimate as it did before. Because of all that, I really do feel like the second movie's plot is the best. It balances story and action really well, the villain's plan is more coherent and in character, and the characters feel just more genuine and engaging. So once again, the second movie wins. It seems like we're developing a little bit of a trend here, doesn't it? Well, make sure to stick around because there's a lot more Superhero Month on the way.